In this short video, I'm going to talk about syntax and what the point of studying syntax is. In the study of language, Yule defines both syntax and grammar almost identically. He calls them both the analysis of the structure of phrases and sentences. Most linguists' definition of grammar is different from their definition of syntax. A grammar contains the words and the rules of a language. A grammar includes a list of words and a set of rules for grouping those words into phrases. Syntax, on the other hand, refers to the study of these rules and of sentence structure in general. It isn't concerned as much with morphology as it is with the ways in which the words can be combined together to form phrases and sentences. Syntax addresses questions like, why is it okay in English to say, "Who did you see Mary with?" but not okay to say, "Who did you see Mary and?" Syntax, on the other hand, refers to the study of these rules and of sentence structure in general. It isn't concerned as much with morphology as it is with the ways in which words can be combined together to form phrases and sentences. Syntax addresses questions like, why is it okay in English to say, "Who did you see Mary with?" but not okay to say, "Who did you see Mary and?" Note that the asterisk in front of an expression indicates that it is ungrammatical. So when you see, "Who did you see Mary and?" with an asterisk, this isn't a typo, it's an example of an ungrammatical sentence. Ungrammatical structures teach us a lot about syntax. Now just a quick reminder on prescriptive and descriptive approaches. We often think of grammar as being a set of rules for proper use of language. These rules tell us what we should do, and they prescribe our linguistic behavior. And we mentioned earlier two such rules: do not split infinitives and do not end the sentence with a preposition. Descriptive approaches, on the other hand, involve looking at not how the language should be used, but how it is in fact used. And this is the kind of approach taken by linguists. On the other hand, when we say we're interested in what speakers do, we don't mean we're interested in the ums and ahs, the little Freudian slips and spoonerisms, and all those verbal hiccups that make oral speech so interesting. We're actually interested in what they intended to say, not what they actually said. And this is the distinction between competence and performance. Competence refers to the subconscious, implicit, intuitive, and often unexplored knowledge native speakers have of the grammar of their native language. Not the rules of the language learnt in school, explicitly, but the implicit understanding. They know certain things to be correct and are able to reject other things as incorrect. A native speaker of English would know, "She isn't here, isn't she?" is less correct, even if they can't explain why. Note, very similar structures are entirely correct in other languages. Performance, on the other hand, refers to the realization of that competence in speech and writing, or writing, which may include slips of the tongue, errors, typos, misunderstandings, garbled explanations. A speaker may say, "She isn't here, isn't she?" even though he or she knows that the sentence should be, "She isn't here, is she?" So the performance, "She isn't here, isn't she?" may be different than the competence, knowing "She isn't here, is she?" is a better way of saying it. When we study syntax, we're studying competence, not performance. We want to know what it is that a fluent or native speaker of the language knows, not what this individual or that individual does with the language at any particular time. Chomsky gives the term I-language to that internalized linguistic system that the competence represents. I just use the term native speaker. Be aware that many critical linguists find the term native speaker highly problematic. Just what is a native speaker? No one is born speaking a language. How young do you have to have been exposed to a language to be considered a native speaker? Despite these concerns, for the study of syntax, the intuitions of so-called native speakers are very important. One of the ways that linguists study syntax is to ask native speakers of the language about the correctness of sentences, and these native speaker intuitions indirectly lead us to an understanding of their I language, their competence. Here is a grammaticality judgment test for you. Listen to these sentences, one at a time, and tell me whether you think they are grammatical, ungrammatical, or you are unsure. Please give her the cup. Please give to her the cup. Please give the cup to her. And please give the cup her. You may have found some of those easier to make a decision about than others. So that's an example of a grammaticality judgment test, or one item in a grammaticality judgment test. And that is one of the ways in which linguists studying syntax can tap into native speaker intuitions. These native speaker intuitions also give us insight into how expressions are interpreted. For example, a native speaker of English could recognize the ambiguity of the sentence, "Sam loves you more than Jim." This is an example sentence from Radford. So Sam loves you more than Jim. The sentence has two interpretations. Which of the interpretations of Sam loves you more than Jim do you think is most viable? Sam loves you more than Jim loves you, or Sam loves you more than Sam loves Jim? So again, asking native speakers how they understand sentence gives us insight into how the syntax of them is organized. One of the goals of the study of syntax is to develop a theory of grammar that can describe any natural language, not simply a grammar for each language, but a theory of grammar that is just as useful in describing Japanese as it is in English. Radford writes, "A theory of grammar must enable us to devise descriptively adequate grammar for every natural language. In other words, our ultimate goal is to develop a theory of universal grammar."
But first I want to talk about innateness, and that's in the next video.